So in Human Services, page 1 is the issue of Porterville and Secure Treatment Program.
Okay. Mr. Chair, we're going to move the compromise, which is
the assembly dollars
the assembly
with
dollars
modified trailer bill language.
With the modified trailer bill language.
Right. So the trailer bill language includes increasing the cap on beds in secure treatment programs at Porterville from 170 to 211. We had discussed all of this earlier. It maintains the cap on beds in the transition treatment program at 60. And then we clarify who can be served in the programs. Additionally, we require transition planning activities to occur for persons in the transition treatment program. And lastly, to require additional transitional activities to occur for persons placed in the TTP for longer than 1 year, and require the department to report to the legislature on March 1st of next year on these residents. Ms. Bosler?
Yes, we appreciate all of the hard work on this compromise, and we do appreciate the additional funding for this important proposal. We just have a couple, or one, I think, outstanding issue in the trailer bill world, but this compromise is one that we support.
Thank you. So that is the motion.
3-0 Assembly.
On the Senate side? 3-0, and on the Assembly side also 3-0. Moving on to page 3. This has to delayed egress of the secured perimeter of facilities that we discussed. There is a compromise to be had. Senator Lara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Move to adopt the modified trailer bill language, which is a compromise.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Senator Nielsen.
Clarification, since we don't have language. One of our concerns about how we're going to deal with the forensic population, and do we have at least a conceptual description of what that'll be, though we don't have the language? Does anybody know what that is?
Teresa Calvert with Department of Finance. The draft language that we've been working on does envision about 50 beds that would be reserved for incompetent to stand trial commitments.
Incompetent in the local court jurisdiction, and then they would be remanded to those beds until such time that they may
be restored to competency.
Okay, gotcha.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Of course, go right ahead, Assemblywoman.
So since I'm not clear on who will fall into that category of incompetent to stand trial, whether that's someone who has committed theft or murder or whatever, I'm going to be abstaining from that vote.
All right. Do you want to address that?
Just to be clear, that these beds are for those people who are in the developmental services system. And so these beds would be specifically for those that are incompetent to stand trials that also have a dual diagnosis of being developmentally disabled as well. So it would be limited just to that population. So.
All right. Thank you for the clarification.
And we are very close on a compromise language here, and we appreciate all of the hard work on this.
Thank you. On the Senate side for the compromise, 2-0 and 2-0 on the Assembly side. Page 4 is the self-determination program provisional budget bill language and some placeholder trailer bill language. We do have a conference compromise that would clarify that persons moving from developmental centers are eligible for this program, and also to authorize finance to approve an increase in the number of participants above the existing 2,500 cap following notification to the JLBC.
Compromise.
All right, we have a motion.
We are supportive of this compromise.
Thank you, Ms. Bosler. We have motion.
3-0 Assembly.
3-0, 3-0. Page 5 is the IMD clarification, Institutes for Mental Disease. And we have another conference compromise. This one adopts modified trailer bill language to clarify responsibility of a regional center when a consumer is placed in an IMD, regardless of who makes the placement. Also to require an IMD to notify a regional center if it is known that a person placed in the facility is a regional center consumer. And lastly, it requires the collection and reporting of information regarding regional center consumers placed in IMDs.
Move the compromise.
3-0.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. 3-0. 3-0.
We are supportive of this compromise.
Good. Thank you, Ms. Bosler. Page 6 is another conference compromise. This has to do with the Fair Labor Standards Act and overtime. The modified trailer bill language requires the Department of Developmental Services to consult with stakeholders to evaluate the impact of this regulation when it's implemented on consumers and providers of regional center services.
Move the Senate with compromise.
Okay. Motion for the conference compromise. 3-0.
2-0. I mean, yeah, 2-0.
3-0-2-0. Page 7, another conference compromise. This deals with addressing disparities in service delivery. The modified trailer bill language in the compromise requires that regional centers provide a written copy of an individual program plan to a consumer in a threshold language if it's requested, and to do so within 45 days. It also requires regional centers to report on the number of instances when the provision of a written IPP to a consumer in a non-threshold language has exceeded 60 days, requires regional center performance contracts to include the measurement of a regional center's progress in reducing disparities, requires the department to consult with stakeholders to interpret data related to disparities, to identify barriers to equitable access to services, and to develop recommendations. And lastly, it will require the department to report on the above efforts during the 2016-17 budget process.
Move the compromise.
3-0.
We have a motion, Ms. Bosler.
We do think that the language is reasonable and is based on many existing requirements.
Thank you. Vote on the Senate side on page 7 is 3-0 and a 3-0 on the Assembly side. Page 8. This is the rate increase proposal that we've been struggling with. And there is a conference compromise. Mr. Martin, would you like to walk us through this compromise?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so on July 1st, 2015, 5% targeted rate increases for supported living services, supported employment services, and respite services, a 2.5% rate increase for transportation services, regional center operations increases, 1 dental coordinator per regional center, 1 forensic coordinator per regional center, and a 5% increase in clients' rights advocacy contract. Then on January 1st, 2016, a 2.5% increase across the board for all provider categories not covered by July 1st, 2015 increase, and a 2.5% increase in the regional center's core staffing formula.
Thank you. And then there's also some modified trailer bill language.
Would you like me to continue?
Sure, go right ahead.
Okay. Modified trailer bill language 2.1 require the department to report annually on their evaluation of the rate-setting methodology for community-based services and regional center operations, and 2, express legislative intent that savings derived from the closure of developmental centers be used to benefit persons with developmental disabilities in the community, and require related information be displayed in annual budget documents.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. I ask that you share with us the trailer bill language because I think it's an important detail here, in particular, since we've had such full discussions with regard to money following the consumer as we move from the state developmental center to the regional center community fashion of delivery services, and that's an important piece for the community in particular. So,
Mr. Chairman.
Assemblywoman Melendez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I won't belabor the point. I know we've had lengthy discussion on this. I will just say that as I'm sure many up here are disappointed that we couldn't get to the 10%. I think everybody up here has a heart for the community that has reached out to us. Dr. Weber and I had a nice discussion prior to us all convening about perhaps some ways we can look at this a little more closely next year. I know this is a disappointment to this community, but I appreciate the effort that went into it, but awfully disappointed it's not that 10%. But thank you for the hard work.
Assemblywoman, thank you. Your comments are very welcomed because in a perfect world, we would be restoring it entirely. This is really a compromise in the truest sense in that we split down the middle everything that the Senate wanted to do as well as what the Assembly wanted to do. So we will continue to work on it, and with this trailer bill language, continue to ensure that as we make our final steps, ongoing steps, and it will take some years to get to a full community delivery of service, that those monies saved in the developmental centers will not be thrown into the general fund, that we intend for them to go into the community. Assemblyman Bloom.
Well, sometimes our glasses are half empty and sometimes they're half full. And I just want to say that I think that this represents a big step forward, even if it's not a perfect step forward. There is more to do. There's more to do on a lot of issues in the budget. But I'm grateful we were able to get to this place.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Nielsen.
Let me echo the sentiments, and very much from the heart, as one who many years ago as a naive senator went to tour Sonoma State Hospital and came to know the families and the challenges that this population suffers, but also being aware of the opportunities that can be available to them if we provide them. So I think our collective hearts are in the right place, and I trust that this is a step forward and there will be further ones ahead.
Thank you, Senator Nielsen. One of the points that we've made through this entire conversation and deliberation and process is that it would make no sense for us. In fact, it would be heartbreaking and not only penny wise and pound foolish to let our local infrastructure of service fall to pieces as we shift from state to community. So we've got to invest. We know this is a step forward. We're moving in the right direction. Ms. Bosler.
Just on the overall, the general fund amount, my same comments would apply here. Collectively, we're just concerned about the ability for the state to afford all of the general fund augmentations in this package going forward. In terms of the trailer bill language, I know there's been some discussions with staff, and I think it's we absolutely fully intend to be very transparent about the savings associated with closing the developmental centers. But from a technical budgeting perspective, we would oppose some sort of earmarking of the monies or restriction of the monies. That's just not the practical budgeting method, but we do have full intention of being transparent about the savings we have, and we understand that the community and others would want an investment in the community of a like amount. So we understand the issue, but we would be opposed to any kind of restrictions about how savings are expended.
Thank you. I hear you, and I just have to defend our language in that we tried to be as judicious as possible in choosing our words. It actually reads that we express legislative intent that savings derived from the closure of developmental centers be used to benefit persons with developmental disabilities in the community. So it's not an earmark, but we know what we want to do, and I think it's important that we state it and put it into trailer bill language. So we have a motion for the compromise, and it is 3-0-3-0. Senator Nielsen, one more thing we have in common is that we've both represented the Sonoma facility. Yes, when I represented Marin and Sonoma, it was in my district. My first 2 years in the Senate. My
Senator,
first
just
4 years.
to add to the narrative, you know, it's a very challenging thing to deal with these circumstances. But once you kind of adjust yourself to it, as the families have had to and of the staff have had to, you don't look at the tragedy or the pain, but you look at the hope. And that's what you focus on. And that's what you look to in the future, that there's certain challenges that we all face in life, but we want to help other people as best we can. And when you see these situations, it just opens your heart to do all the more for them.
I couldn't say it better. Thank you, Senator.